Hello and welcome. Today you are listening to A Little Bit at a Time, where we bring on guests to help us learn more about the cryptocurrency industry. Today I have a really special guest. It should be a really good one. And it's a guy, Bernardo, who is from Lastbit, which is a software company that's aiming to bring Bitcoin adoption to the mainstream and to help you, buy simple things such as a coffee. They're going to be using the Lightning Network, which is a network on the blockchain that's going to help transactions move a little faster, and you can bring down the transaction fee. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And first, let's hear a little bit about your background, just so we can get to know you a little bit better.
So my background is more in management consulting. I spent part of my career, well, the beginning of my career, I would say, at McKinsey. I spent 2.5 years at McKinsey. There, I did a lot of work for financial institutions. 80% or so of my time I actually worked for banks. I hadn't really touched crypto back then. I really wanted to kind of find all the tiny details in that industry to be able to kind of change the structure of the industry. I always really like financial services because I do feel that they're kind of like the veins of the world. If you think about it, money is kind of that oil that makes everything happen. And banks and financial institutions are kind of like those veins that make money and incentives move. So I was always very passionate about financial services. That's why I kind of devoted so much of my time in McKinsey. And then I came to business school with the same idea. Back then, I really felt I wanted to go back to McKinsey. As you know, McKinsey is a big school. There's so much resources, so much to learn. So I kind of wanted to go back and try to see if I could change things. I wanted to use my time in the MBA to explore more disruptive technologies in financial services. That's when I kind of started to read about blockchain, about Bitcoin. Quite honestly, I didn't understand it all that well. There's, as you know, very little information. There's some people that think they know, but they don't really know. So it's kind of like at the beginning, it's kind of hard to get yourself into understanding this. So I just decided to explore a little bit more of that, from an academic, nerdy point of view. I bought some books, I did some reading, talked to some people that knew about the subject. But I thought my professional career was more oriented towards, say, the traditional banking industry. And that's kind of the path I covered for most of my MBA. To a point, I also decided to do my internship in a bank. I kind of wanted to work from what I defined back then as the customer point of view, the client, very consulting mindset, which was a bank. So I went down to Peru to work with the largest bank there, BCP. And had an amazing experience. I got an amazing leadership role with direct exposure with one of the biggest chair boards there, leading some amazing people, leading some very interesting projects in digital transformation. And again, the experience was amazing. I had a lot of resources, a lot of amazing people that were following my lead, interacted with very senior people in the bank, but something was a little off, it was kind of hard to move things forward. There was a lot of bureaucracy happening. Yeah, the bank was urging to push forward and they've done amazing work, but they just kind of struggling to balance that risk-averse attitude with that, a little bureaucracy, an institution of that size has. So I kind of came back last year to the area with happy with the experience, but also with a lot of clarity that was not the way to go. And then at that time is when I started to explore more intentionally. And eventually through Skydeck, which I don't know if you're familiar or not with Skydeck, but Skydeck is the accelerator of UC Berkeley, which is an amazing program. They put it together. It's now really contending arguably with YC, the Y Combinator, which is this super prestigious program. Through the school, I eventually met my now co-founder, Prashant. And then it's when I really started just understanding hardcore what Bitcoin was. And it just completely blew my mind. I came into the project with the expectation of having this being a short-term thing, was kind of almost playing around, trying to learn a little bit. I'm always being very geeky. So it was this cool, unexplored field. I wanted just to learn as much as possible. And then now it's just my full-time job. I'm passionate, I'm committed. So I've learned so much things. I mean, we can walk I can walk you through the specifics of what I've learned and why it has blown my mind. But that's kind of like my short story of how I'm here, how I started.
Right. Yeah. What's your favorite aspect of Bitcoin? Because I think it's super interesting when somebody comes from like a
Yeah.
banking background and gets into it. Because I know when I first originally got into Bitcoin, it was because I got permanently banned on PayPal back when I was 13 years old. And so that's when I jumped into Bitcoin because I saw kind of the gap between financial institutions and their customers. And so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess Bitcoin makes sense. And back then, no one really knew about Bitcoin. So like the information was pretty like, consolidated. Now there's information on a million different websites and it's probably like overwhelming for people to get in. But yeah, what's your favorite aspect of it? Okay.
Ooh, I think there's a lot, but I think there's two aspects that really, really blew my mind. One, I'm an economist. I studied economics back in undergrad. So one is the economic aspect, the monetary aspect of Bitcoin. And I can talk a little bit more about what I mean with that. And then the second thing is the social aspect, which is kind of like it derives directly from the monetary aspect. So the economic aspect, it blows my mind because it really forces you to challenge what money is. I remember when I was starting to study Bitcoin, I was like, what is this? What it comes from? It's based out of nothing. It's just like computer code. And then it really forced me to think like, oh, wait, but that's money in general. It's based out of nothing. Like, it's just like, there's no difference between the central bank defining what they believe the economy is going to look like and printing bills versus like someone writing a code that has monetary rules. So that like, when I started to think about that, it was just blew my mind. And then when you start to think carefully, people say, oh, but this is beta, so nothing is speculation. But if you carefully think about what Bitcoin is the one first form of money that's actually tied to real economic value or potentially can be tied to real economic value. How central banks determine their monetary policies, they do some assessment of the economy, and they literally decide how much money to print or what interest rates to put out there. So they can make people believe there's some sort of activity and then they just push things forward. That's kind of like, I understand why they do it, but it's not ideal. Where actually Bitcoin, how money is created in Bitcoin is through transactions. And if you eventually manage to link transactions to real things, then those transactions are really related to economic value and to real production. And that's mind-blowing if you carefully think about it. So that's one thing. And then the second thing for me, it's, as I said, it's the social aspect of the technology. That's why I think it's so disruptive and so different. Like, we all live in societies with very strict social construct and social rules. And those social rules are enforced through the government, and the government has power, usually through monetary policy, what they call sovereignty and stuff like that. So when you start moving that monetary power from a central authority, from a limited group of people to the general population, that becomes amazingly powerful. You can start thinking about really having a global community with freedom, in which the idea of having a life worth more because they were born in Pakistan or Nepal or Mexico versus someone's life who's worth objectively more if they're born in Germany or in the US, that kind of just can completely dissolve now with a concept like Bitcoin and decentralized money. So those are for me the two very, very powerful concepts that when I finally understood Bitcoin, it just completely blew my mind.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. When I first got into Bitcoin, I remember someone sent it to me and then I was like, what can I buy with this? And they were like, oh, well, you just have to find someone who accepted it. And I was like, I got scammed. And then it like took me another full year to even get back into it because I was like, I just got scammed. Like,
of course.
Oh, I think your audio just cut out a little.
I think I lost you. Can you hear me back?
Yeah, I can hear you now. But that's why I think it's amazing what you guys are doing at Lastbit is because you're really connecting Bitcoin now to actual items that you can purchase. I think on the website you mentioned that you want to allow people to buy Bitcoin or allow people to buy, say, coffee with Bitcoin and connect them to real world assets. Whereas before, Bitcoin was just kind of magical internet money, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. So, we can talk a little bit more about that. So if you think like ideally how I think this should work in the long term is you should have, of course, people using Bitcoin and just receiving Bitcoin, and then there should be no intermediaries at all, right?
Right.
That's
so
kind of the hard
is
problem.
Kind of bad, right? you would say? If you like,
Uh,
by pegging it to like a US dollar, it's sort of negative, right? Or
yes
would
and
you
no.
say?
Like
Yeah.
I think that it's a complex answer to that question. So I think
Mhm.
in the long term, yeah, that's kind of the utopical state of the world in which like one not until people actually are feel comfortable directly receiving their salaries in Bitcoin,
Right.
using that to pay for goods and services, selling their cars in Bitcoin, paying their rent in Bitcoin. Like the promise of Bitcoin will never fully deliver, right? That's as
Mhm.
simple as that. But right now we're in that state where people don't trust that decentralized system. They don't trust that new form of money. So our vision as a company is that kind of we need to bridge it somehow. We need to build confidence. We need to show people that they can actually use it
Mhm.
first. So that's why I do believe and we do believe that partner with banks, with payment networks is not a bad thing in the short term. We're kind of like showing people little by little what they can do with it, helping them doing little things with them, and then just empower them to just take that and do it full on completely by themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important when you're dealing with, because you're basically trying to adopt Bitcoin by allowing, everyday usage of it, and basically creating a platform where it's frictionless and it's not, as hard as it is right now. That would be
That's right.
amazing for it. And so I think, yeah, that's like a really important benefit of your, project is that you're creating a frictionless area that you can, basically instantly you just buy coffee without really putting in that much effort. Because I did see on here, let me just screen share really quick. I did see on the website here, you kind of have a little example of how it'll work. And this seems like extremely easy. The user interface on it is really nice. And it's
No, thank you.
basically really frictionless. Anybody can use it. And I think that's an important aspect that Bitcoin never really had. Wallets back then using multi-bit was so hard to use.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
accepting and receiving was really hard. Yeah.
And we also kind of like want to break a lot of these myths that you need, as you said, need to be highly technical or you need to be someone completely crazy to be able to use this. Like, if this technology is going to change the world, it should be easily usable
Mhm.
and usable. It's not like this crazy internal money you can play around with and you can log into this complex trading platforms and kind of like you're playing with real money, but you're not really doing anything but like bet. We
Mhm.
want this to be useful, helpful, and actually empower people to use it, to defend themselves from abusive governments to irresponsible monetary policies. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I also did see that you guys had over 500,000 euros. I think it was like 513,000 euros in funding as well. I
Yeah,
believe I saw that. Yeah,
close to $600,000. Yeah, so far.
600,000. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's amazing because that was only two funding rounds, I believe, right?
it's one funding round.
One
We have
funding
a
round.
pre-seed round. Yeah, we're close to launching our product finally in Europe, and
And
we're looking to raise our seed round finally. That should help us. I mean, this is still not official, of course, but
mhm.
this will allow us to scale in Europe and probably to launch a similar product in the US.
Right. Yeah, because I think like something like Visa costs around $1 million or something. You have to have minimum funding for that, or
Yeah, that
something.
they changed the rule when we started. They were trying
Okay.
to pilot in this program back then. They
Mhm.
had initially established limit of $1 million funding to work with them. Actually, they changed now. They are being very proactive about bringing smaller companies like us. Most companies that are working in disruptive technologies are not super well funded, but
Right.
and if you really think about it, those small companies are the ones who need the help of a program like the one they're putting together. So now they're making it a little easier to work with them. They are also being more active and more proactive about bringing cryptocurrency companies on board, which I think is great. Again, our position as a fintech company, especially working on Bitcoin, is we do need the help of those big players. We do need help of those big banks, and we can both help the environment and the ecosystem grow. Right? We need their help to get to our customers and to make lives easier for our customers. And at
Mhm.
the same time, I think we can help them tap a completely new market, all that underbanked, underserved market, markets of where countries have irresponsible monetary policies where they cannot trust the government, but they don't have some sort of like financial freedom, if you will, all those markets can be easily tapped with something like Bitcoin. So if you ask me, it's a win-win situation for both. And I think we had it relatively clear. Companies like us, I think from what I'm seeing from bigger companies, they're starting to realize that it also makes a lot of sense for them to work with us.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, you guys are using the Lightning Network as a technology behind it, because right now it wouldn't really be feasible to buy a $3 coffee with a $6 transaction fee, So,
Right.
yeah, so just walk me through quickly, how does the Lightning Network, actually help this technology? How does it lower it? How does it lower the transaction costs?
Absolutely. I'm going to explain it maybe in a few levels, first from very simple and then a little bit more complex. I don't want to get super technical,
right.
super complex, but the short answer is like, for me, the Lightning Network is very simple. For the Lightning Network for Bitcoin is what Venmo was for wire transfers in the US, right? It's just a very simple way of sending money virtually free to anyone you know. That's exactly what Lightning Network is. It's nothing more like that. How it enables for us to do that from a technical point of view, it's actually very, very interesting. It's very elegant. So the way we work, it's basically a routed payment network. What this means is that there's a lot of technical jargon, but it's relatively easy what it means. Routed, it just means that for me to get to you, for example, Tim, I'll just find a way through other people that are in the network. So imagine we have a network of, say, 5 people. It's me, it's Alice, it's Bob, and then you, Tim. You don't really have a channel with me, but I want to send money to you. So I'm just going to find a way to send money to Alice, Bob, and then we'll be you. Right? And then the way it works in Bitcoin, it's interesting because what you need to do is create those payment channels. So imagine I, Bernardo, have a channel with Alice. Alice has a channel with Bob, and Bob has a channel with you. The way you do it is you create this, what's called escrow accounts. So for example, if I want to transact $100 with you, then I will log $100 equivalent to Bitcoin with Bob, and we will actually publish that transaction into the blockchain. So the actual confirmation of creating that channel, which would take 20, 30, 40 minutes, depending on how much it would take for that moment in time. But once that channel has been established, we can just freely transact. And that's the magic of Lightning. Of course, right now it's a little tricky because, as you probably have already realized, we kind of need to build that network. We need to build those channels. We need to send those channels to the blockchain to be actually able to operate in that. Which is kind of exactly how Venmo and stuff like that works, by the way.
Yeah, that is interesting because I know a lot of people, that was the fault of the Lightning Network, was that you needed to have these channels. But then, as you can see here, this was from Coindesk. There's over $12.3 million that's currently being used on it, and it looks like it's at all-time highs.
That's right.
So it's something that people are actually using, and I think that's the thing about crypto is that anything could work. We need to explore and at least try anything, right? Because there's really no point in there's no problem with not trying something out. So that is a really interesting aspect of it. And if this happens, so it's really off-chain transactions is really what it is, right?
That's right.
Right.
And if you think about it, I think like some people don't realize, and it's normal because this is a very disruptive technology. Bitcoin is kind of like the basic rules of a new technology. We kind of need to think back to the internet, how that evolved. At the beginning, it was just a protocol to connect information between 2 points. Bitcoin, the base layer of Bitcoin, it's kind of like a similar level, but it's just way more powerful. It has this economic principle. It has this trustless principle. It has this that makes it so much powerful. But a lot of things need to be built on top of that to make it actually useful. So that's why layer 2 protocols such as Lightning Network are just not going to change it, but they're going to completely evolve it and allow us to do things that were completely unimaginable with Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree. And yeah, it's funny because I was actually just reading your article based on, talking about crypto and the new age of the internet and how that kind of, like translates to, this industry as well. Yeah, so that is really interesting. And you guys also have a wallet on it as well that you can use if you'd like. So
Yeah, that's right.
you have a secured wallet to kind of help you store and to send and to receive crypto all in one easy and convenient place as well.
I mean, the idea we're trying to actually solve the complexities like of how to manage those channels. So if you think about why it's hard to like actually have and host your self-aligning wallet, it's because you need to create those channels to send and receive, and the actual network is a little bit unstable. So if you want to operate by yourself a Lightning node, a Lightning wallet,
Right.
what you need to do is go download a specific software, make sure you have sending and receiving channels. So we're kind of trying to help people have this experience in a very simple, seamless way in which you log in and you already have that liquidity provided. We on the back end make sure you have sending and receiving channels, and for you it's just as easy as just to click a button and just send the money wherever you want to or receive it. That's kind of like what we're trying to just make this very complex and technical technology available for pretty much anyone that can download the app.
Yeah, so again, it's basically you're just trying to cut the friction out of doing it. You don't have to research everything about Lightning to be able to use your product because you guys are doing it on the back end. So that is
That's
nice.
right. That's right. I mean, and just think about it. Imagine you would need to understand the fundamentals of how like your wire transfer works to be able to actually send it, right? Imagine you would need to do the settlement of the transaction yourself. It's just like not gonna happen. It's not reasonable. Or imagine just like even consumer goods, like that you would have your iPhone delivered in pieces and you would need to put it together by yourself. It's like that's not how it works, and it's normal. So people work in very specific fields, and that's kind of how we as humankind are evolving and just moving forward.
Yeah.
There's some sort of basis of knowledge that some people have constructed. That people that are working in emerging technologies, in my point of view, they have the obligation of making that accessible and easy to people. So then the next generation can come and build on top instead of trying to relearn, redo, redeploy. That's kind of like the vision I personally have about what's the responsibility of us that are working in this industry about making this widely accessible to everyone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've always said it like you can really only have one or two domain, you can only be a domain expert in 1 to 2 things because everything is so complex now and people are spending so much time in their own individual fields that you really can't be an expert on everything. So you have to have some like level of trust in it, which I think is awesome for, crypto and blockchain is that people are developing things and people are working on it basically for free. I mean, obviously there's some, aspect to it that they're, getting paid on, but people can just start up the blockchain. They can start developing on it and, work towards, this decentralization that everybody, talks about and wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
In blockchain.
And that's, I think, one of the beauties of working in this industry. Like most of the people we work with, they're just like the best people we've had, like period, are the people that love doing this and work for free. It's just like, for me, it's kind of like a red sign when someone comes and directly asks for money, asks for equity. Yeah, of course, we like all collaborators, we want to like make them happy and have them on board fully, but kind of like everyone that's willing to work for free at the beginning, and this is very specific about this industry, it's just like they're amazing because you really know they understand what this is about. They really understand this is more like a social movement, kind of like a social such thing as a technical revolution, and the sole idea of being able to be part of a movement like that just drives them so strong. Just it's beautiful. I haven't seen this in any other industry.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, the crypto industry really is one of the kindest industries too. I mean, I go to some of the events, ETH Boston and things like that. And like these people, everyone's there to help you. Everyone wants to, kind of all contribute to the greater good. And you can even see this in like DeFi. People are creating yams and like, it's really the Wild West in DeFi right now, but people are developing on top of protocols that were created yesterday. So it's like, it's absolutely wild.
Absolutely.
And I know,
and I don't know there's the latency a little bit, Tim. But yeah, I think it's kind of a shame that crypto has some sort of bad reputation because of course there were a lot of scams. There were a lot of people that just are chasing the easy money, right? but that's not what Bitcoin is. That's not the purpose of cryptocurrencies.
No.
It's a completely different thing. So I think us and similar projects that are seriously working on this industry, we have the responsibility and the obligation to really change a little bit the perspective people have and really show them what positive and great things can be done with something like Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree. And, some things like, like Binance just recently, helped to get somebody arrested that stole millions of dollars and things like that. So it's not completely anonymous and people aren't just always scamming because you can still get caught no matter what. And I think that's what people kind of, don't understand. Some things work better, like ransomware probably works better in crypto, but it's not what crypto's all about. And the majority of people are working ethically to, create this a better place for everyone involved.
I wouldn't say the majority because when there's some sort of promise of easy money, there's a lot of people that want to chase it. And when there's not some sort of like a structured framework about how to assess and evaluate what's a good project versus a bad project, what's legitimate between what's fraud, a lot of people are just gonna try to come to the party, right? But that's why we need to kind of set the rules. We need to kind of like put that first foot forward to regulate, to comply, to create some sort of like integrated play field in which rules are clear for everyone. That's my point of view.
Yes, standards definitely do need to exist, and regulation can really be good if it's done, in the right way. Because obviously, you shouldn't have a project raising $1 billion that hasn't even been audited, but we've seen it so many times, happening over and over. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways that we can improve it, and it's still very, very new. So it's an industry that has shown a lot of enthusiasm.
100%.
Yeah. So I know that you are on a time crunch, right? You have to.
Yes. I actually have to, talking about regulation and rules, I have to jump on a call with some lawyers to figure out some things.
Okay,
No soon problem. Soon to be launched in Europe. So yeah, I will have to cut it short this time, Tim. But
no
pleasure
problem.
meeting you. Pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it was a little short. We both had some, scheduling stuff that we had to do it. So we had to do it really fast. But if you like this video, make sure to subscribe. There'll be more videos probably coming out maybe once a week. So we're going to be tackling different sides of the industry.